All right.
Hi everyone, welcome to today's live stream. As usual, as I'm starting all the marketing, the final marketing push, please state where you're watching the stream from and we'll do our quick shout outs and highs. And this will be an interesting one because I've never done a traditional live stream tutorial like this before. So hopefully we don't run into any problems and it's smooth and we get to do some pencil and paper drawing today. So then as I'm doing this, Joe, as the shoutouts come in, do you want to just get it in there?
Get what? Your mic went.
Oh, get the shoutouts going.
Oh. We say Francisco says stream hype +8. Oh wow. Stream hype. Stream hype.
Stream hype. Well, I'm gonna close that door. I can hear you echo.
All right. Hello from Sweden. Hello from Moscow. Dave T says, "Are you ready to rumble?"
Am I ready to what?
Rumble.
I can't hear you.
Rumble.
Oh, your mic's doing the in and out again.
That's so bizarre.
That's okay, as long as I can kind of get what you're saying.
Microphone work. I bet it's because my window's open.
I'm excited to do this one today.
Alive from Wolverhampton.
Didn't catch any of that.
Hold on.
What if you just switch to your normal computer, or does your computer not have a mic? PCs, am I right?
I have no idea why it just was set to 35. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there we go. All right. All right, I am ready. Are you good?
I believe so.
Okay. Oh, I gotta do DeviantArt. All right. So for those that are just walking in, welcome to this live stream. This has been probably one of the most requested live streams to do, but I've always been a little leery of it because my camera that I got, I thought it was a pretty good one, but it has an auto zoom feature, which I don't like because then it readjusts whenever my hand gets too in focus, or whenever it's too close to the camera, it focuses on my hand rather than the paper. And there's no like auto focus, or there's no manual focus where I can just set it to just the paper. So hopefully that doesn't happen too much today, but you never know. Go and update that. All right, Joe, you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's CG Cookie live stream. We do these every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Time, and that's -5 GMT. And I'm Tim Von Rieden, joined by Joe Chico as the moderator.
Hello.
And today we're going to be doing some traditional sketching. And I'm going to go through some tips and techniques that I use when I'm sketching. I'm going to talk about the hardware that I use. I'm going to talk about the difference between like gesture, concept, and precision sketching. Some contrast shading using reference and going too dark too fast. Pretty much all the things that I've tried to incorporate in my own drawings while I'm working, and hopefully some of this will be beneficial for you guys. And if you have any questions, even if it's not a traditional question, feel free to ask. And the other thing is the workshop did sell out. It sold out over the weekend. So if any of you were wanting to join in, you'll have to wait till the fall. But I know a few of you that are watching today made the cut, so I can't wait to work with you guys. You'll probably get an email next weekend, kind of getting the communication going. But anyways, let me switch my camera here and see how it's working. Oops. Okay. Okay, how's that working?
Oh man, that's your hand.
Right? Is it too dark or is it okay?
No, that's good.
Oh,
Start
yeah.
drawing. Start drawing and I'll be able to tell you.
What? Oh yeah, if it ever gets bad, let me know right away.
It's back on your face.
Oh yeah, because I wanted to show what I'm going to be using.
Oh, okay.
So in the traditional tutorial, there is one on CG Cookie that you can watch. It's free, but I talk about the 3 different pencils I use and the eraser. I don't even have one on my desk. I almost always do. Hold on, I got to run upstairs and grab my eraser.
Meanwhile, I'll still do shout outs. We got hello from Canada, Lithuania, Hawaii, Philadelphia, Netherlands. Little roadie.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay.
Okay, so when I do my sketching, I never use pens or micron pens. They're great, but I'm more of a pencil guy. So here are the 3 pencils that I typically use. And there's variations of them, but there's something that makes each unique. And I'll kind of go through why. If I can find. Okay. So this first one is your standard mechanical pencil. It's a 0.7 lead, and that's very important because that is the diameter. I don't know how well you'll be able to see this. That's the diameter of the pencil itself, or of the lead. And this creates thicker, broader strokes. And let me see if oh my god, why am I out of breath? Really, that stare thing did it to me. All right, so then I'm going to show you the difference between a 0.7 and a 0.3 lead. So, oh god, it's not going to focus right. Oh wait, maybe I'll do the back of this paper. Well, if it goes in focus, pretty much the one with the silver grip is less than half the size as the mechanical pencil. So this is a 0.3. And then the one in between is a 0.5. So typically I start with the bigger one and then I work my way to the detailing one with like the very fine precision details with the small one. And then the eraser I use is this kneaded eraser. So it should look like gum and you can like stretch it, shape it. And I typically make it into a cone, something like that. So then while I'm working, I get like a precision point, but I also work on it with like dabbing. So I'll dab the paper itself. If there's areas that seem too dark, or if it really seems like the outline is just too thick, I'll literally use my thumb because the oils on your finger will pick it up. So I'll usually like lay my thumb down and then pick it up, and then you'll see the outline on your finger. Okay, I think that's all the utensils I use. Yes, all right. So I'm going to switch back to my other camera. So the first pencil I'll be using is the big one, and then I'll tell you when I switch to the smaller ones. Okay. I feel like I need to catch my breath. I'm like running and talking too fast. Okay. And I'll try not to shake the table. So this was my little warm-up sketch, and it kind of shows the difference between like a conceptual, or no, this was my gestural, this was my conceptual, and then this was a precision. But I'll kind of go through each and show you how I do it. All right. So let's see. I'm going to try not to move the mic too much so that it doesn't, because right now I have the camera like hanging on the mic. So hopefully I won't move it too much. And I'll get my hand out of the way too.
I think the camera is like slightly shaking for some reason.
It's attached to the camera. Or it's attached to the microphone. That's what I meant.
Oh, that is so wobbly.
I know. So hopefully it won't be horrible. I'll try to keep my hands as steady as possible. Actually, I won't even write it. All right. So there's 3 kinds of sketching, or at least the ones that I consider of what I would do. So the first one is gesture sketching. So gesture is when you're like trying to think of like before. Let me think of a good example. Like if you're doing an illustration. Wow, hold on. I'm gonna sit so that I'm not even like touching the desk as much. Okay, so gestural sketching is when you're like trying to get a pose or you're figuring out some kind of a dynamic shaping to your character, or like you're quickly trying to create the impression of something. So if I was like creating a bed of flowers, it'd be like a quick sketchy look. Maybe this guy is like running through a flower garden or whatever. I don't know. Is he kicking? I don't know. But gestural is very quick. It's not supposed to be defined. It's very, very much trying to capture a moment, or it's like a sketch to be added on later. So like if I wanted to do a full illustration piece, I would probably start with like 5 gesture sketches of what I think the piece should look like, and I'll try different poses, slightly different variations of the piece so that I can get a better idea of what I think would work best before I just dive into doing like a full sketch. That would take a lot of time, but wouldn't like, what's the best way to describe this? Because there's, in my opinion, there's a difference between gesture and concept sketching. Gesture is very quick, where concept sketching is like, you might have just a few standing poses. And mind you, this is more for like character artists, but kind of the same thing applies to environment artists. So you have like, imagine these times 10, and it would be like this way. And when you're concepting, you're trying to figure out the outfit that the character is wearing. So it's not so much focusing on the illustration or capturing the movement of a piece. It's really just figuring out what exactly the concept is. So when I think of gesture drawing, it might be like when I go out to the park and try to draw a park scene. If it's something quicker, I'll do more gesture drawing, where there's nothing conceptual about it because I'm just drawing what I'm seeing. It's almost like reference drawing. And now the third one is precision sketching. And this one I'll go more into because this takes a little more time. So I guess first I'll do some examples of gesture and concept sketching. So let's see here. Let me move this. Where's my hand placement? There we go. So first one, I'm going to draw one of the eat sheep bad guys. While I'm sketching, and mind you, I'm working very fast. I'm not focusing too much on the details. I'm just trying to focus on getting the character blocked in and get a good idea of his overall proportions, his emotion that he's trying to evoke. And while I'm doing this, I'll go ahead and start answering some questions.
All right, I have a question about someone's upkeep, the upkeep of sketching. So like when your sketchbook, when you close it, you know how like it smudges. Is there any way to prevent it from smudging?
I know some people will even put like Kleenex or something in between their pages, but ever since I had my sketchbook stolen from me, I always rip out every sketch I do. So I don't actually have that problem anymore, but I totally had that problem a few years ago where I would just have like one sketchbook compared to now where I think I have 11. And with that one sketchbook, every time you carry it or you put it in a backpack, it's rubbing, the paper is rubbing on itself. So imagine if you had your drawing on one side and then the clean side was pushed against it. Well, every time that that paper moves even slightly, it's going to rub against that paper. So the best thing that you can do is try not to move it as much. So if it's a traveling sketchbook, just be very careful and be very aware that that will probably happen. But if you just keep it by your bedside or on a table somewhere in your house, there probably won't be that much smudging at all. But that is something that is really hard to prevent. So I would say just kind of plan ahead of time.
Also, go check out spray fixatives. Like if you're finished with the drawing, I believe there's a spray out there that just makes it so that the top of the pencil doesn't pick up on any other surface. That's a way to do for our big ones, like for our portfolios, you know?
Yeah, I
You
did
have to
that in high
spray
school.
those.
It works pretty well. I just don't know if they would want to spray every single page of their sketch. Well, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah. Reb Shay says, maybe you'll mention later, but do you use any lead other than HB in the finer mechanical pencils? I don't believe there are B or softer leads in the finer point mechanical pencils, right?
Not yet. I really want to start though because Alan Williams, who is like my personal drawing hero, he uses a bunch of different variations from like the I think it's 2H. Sorry if I don't know my pencils, but he uses a variety of soft versus hard lead, and I want to start getting into that. I think I've just been so conditioned to had back in the day when I was growing up that's all I ever really drew with. And or those traditional standard #2 pencils, those were like all I had to work with. So, but I'm older and I can start experimenting with darker leads. I definitely want to get into that.
I mean, I might need to come down there and hold that camera steady.
You can't because it's like attached to the microphone, which is attached to the desk.
Yeah. I'm getting motion sickness over here.
Yeah, sorry guys. I'll try to get some kind of a stand that isn't attached to the desk, so it'll be a little clearer the next time I do one of these.
I'm trying to think if I have anything that can help. David Zerba says, are you using some kind of special paper? Because I know certain papers have different textures, right?
Yes, and they have a different weighting to it. So let me see if I can flip this around. All right, so this is, see if you can see it on the bottom here. So the thing I always look for is this on the bottom here. So look for the weight of your paper. I generally do not want to work with lighter paper because it's really easy to see through them, and they're so thin that sometimes it might crumple on you if you move your hand, like if you slide it too fast on the paper, it might crinkle the paper and you can't get that out. But with thicker paper, that won't really happen. There's actually like very little chance that would ever happen because it's so thick. So I usually use a mixed media paper too. Let me check my other sketchbooks that are right here.
Mixed media is so smooth. I love it.
What?
The mixed media paper is really smooth.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah.
So this one. All right, so this is the one that's a little different. So this one is still mixed. It's like a recycled sketch paper. I like it, but the only thing that's different is you can see it's 60 pound. So the paper, and you can definitely feel it when you're turning the pages, the difference between the thicker paper and the thinner paper. And usually I'll carry the thinner one I won't do any like shading. It'll be like pure outlining and quick gestural drawing. But when I'm doing like actual precision sketching, I'll use a thicker paper. Let me see what this one is too. All right, so then this one's right in between. So it's still a mixed media, but then this one's a 75. So this is probably as light as I would go for doing my precision sketching because I can still get my details. I don't know if I have any sketches in here that I can show you, but pretty much it's the same thing as what I was doing. Oh yeah, I have so this is generally what I use to do, like I'll just watch TV and then I'll just draw in my sketchbook. I'll have it open, and I like to use the thicker sketchbooks versus the thinner ones. All right, we'll zoom back down. All right, so this is a very gestural drawing here, or sketching, I should say, where I'm working very fast and I'm purely letting my mind take over of like having my shape languages and my knowledge of it just take over. And if there's areas where I think it would look better, I add it. If there's areas I think I would take it away, I would use my eraser. And I think using your eraser, I remember an artist told me never, or was it my teacher in college, but it was to never use your eraser. Try to work with never using your eraser. And another teacher told me, well, don't think of your eraser as you made mistakes. Think of it as you made a change in your mind. So you had a change of mind of what you wanted to be down. And that's why you have to use the eraser. But when you're doing something that's so quick and like gestural like this, like taking the time to erase something like that is almost not worth it because this isn't supposed to be like a very clean, awesome sketch. It's supposed to be quick and fast and loose. And it's supposed to give an impression. So from this, you can probably tell All right, that seems like a crazy type of character. He likes bombs and he has these swirly eyes. So I think when you would hand this to a concept artist, or if you are the concept artist, you would do like maybe 10 of these quick sketches if you were given the character of like crazy bomb guy. And you do 10 quick gestural drawings of crazy bomb guy. And then from there, once you kind of have it figured out, that's where I would then line him up like this. And then that's when I would start the concept sketching. Because then I'm looking at, okay, why are the pants the shape that they are? Do they make sense for this character? And then I'll have like the one next to it with a slightly different design on the bottom. And that's where the difference between gestural and conceptual design come in. Okay, now the one that's a little more exciting is, or at least more exciting to see the final result sometimes. Sometimes gestural sketching that can be really cool though, so I shouldn't say that. But precision sketching. Now, I consider myself a precision artist. Admittedly, I'm not very good at doing quick conceptual stuff. I feel I'm much more trained to do precision sketching. So this is how I precision sketch. And I'm going to say this right now. It's not like this is how you should sketch or the only rules how to. This is just how I tend to do it. And it seems to work out pretty well for me in terms of like feeling satisfied once I finished. So I'm going to go ahead and start blocking it out. Okay. So the first thing that I do is I'm still using my giant mechanical pencil here. And I'll kind of have a vision of what I want on the paper beforehand, or I like to pretend I do. And then usually as I'm working through it, it'll just grow on itself. So I try to give it a good stance to work on, or a good foundation to build upon first. And if you guys follow any of my traditional stuff, you know I really enjoy organics and I like working with drawing horns. So I'm going to go ahead and draw some here. I'm going to draw some curly ones today. So I tend to go slower and I'm trying to block in the different shapes here. So this will be like a headpiece. Now, the main thing that I'm trying to do here is keep it very light. If I go too dark too fast, that's when it becomes very hard to build upon because you already laid out such a defining edge that it can be hard to work up anything from that. But if you start lighter, if you need to erase, use your gum, then you can.
Let me know when you want to take questions.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I'm just going to keep. So I know this might be kind of hard to see, but trust me, it'll become easier to see once we get into the outlining stage. But for right now, yeah, I'll take questions as I'm just kind of free outlining here.
Okay, this one is +10. It says, how important is it to obtain a degree for concept designing? Do most companies want the artist to have a degree or really good portfolio to showcase their work?
I actually don't know any instances of a company that wanted a degree for someone to get the job. So I actually think if it was how important from 1 to 10, I would say it's like a 1 or 2, because your art will speak for itself. Those that are good at creating art will get a job. It's who was it? Shoot, I just read his whole thing on portfolios, but his quote on the top was talking about talent, or it was like top talent is always in demand. So if you have the skill to create beautiful drawings or illustrations or concept art, you're going to get a job regardless of if you went to school for it or not. Because in the end, they're paying you for the art. They're not paying you for your degree.
If you want to work as a digital artist, how important is it to have your own website with your portfolio on it? And can you recommend some sites for posting your work to get attention from clients?
Yeah, so it is important. I know I just talked to my friend in Minnesota about this over the weekend because she has a personal website. And I always wondered, like, is that still relevant in today's time where you could just post it on like Tumblr, Facebook, or DeviantArt, or whatever it might be. And she says it's still important because freelance clients like to see just your art, no filler, no distraction. So that was her general opinion. I personally don't think you do, but I feel like that's one of those where it's a personal preference thing, because maybe there are some employers out there that do have a preference, but I would say there's just as enough of employers that would not care if you have a personal one or if it's just on a DeviantArt, because in the end they just want to see your art, because they will judge you and qualify you based on the level of art that you have or the skill level that seems to be required for your art, regardless of where it's at. So the ones that I would say, some recommended ones, let me see here, because I know I have to market CG Cookie and my own stuff all the time. Okay, so I always post to Facebook, DeviantArt, Tumblr, YouTube if it's relevant or a video, Twitter, Pinterest, Draw Crowd, what's that other one that just came out? It's not Draw Crowd. It's
The ArtStation.
ArtStation, Polycount if it's relevant again, and Instagram, which I know sometimes these like new social media ones, it's always like another one, but usually you got to follow the trend. And if you're not willing to adapt and change to the current model, then that's gonna prevent you from growing as an artist or growing as being seen by potential employers, or just even being a recognized artist. Because the more that you're out there, the easier it becomes for people to reach you and follow you. So I feel like you would only be hurting yourself if you're limiting yourself to only one or two.
Kieran says, "So I found myself stuck at the moment. I've recently gotten way better at digital art, which is great. But I recently took out my sketchbook to draw, and I found that it was looking way worse. How do I fix this? Because it's kind of disheartening."
I totally know where you're at, because I had that same problem where it was like a year and a half ago. I felt very comfortable in digital, but then I tried sketching my sketchbook because that's what I grew up on. That's where our roots are. And I felt I had gotten worse. And that was a problem for me because I always loved just drawing in a sketchbook. But then when I really thought my digital skill level is so much higher than my traditional skill level, I made it a goal to try to even it out. So now I feel pretty comfortable in both. And now I can see all the benefits that go hand in hand with each other. So I think the best thing you can do is, as you progress on either being a digital or a traditional artist, try to also progress in the other, because there's so much that you can take away from one that you can apply to the other, that it actually, once again, I feel like it would only hurt you if you decided to only do one. So go out, and if you haven't already, go get a sketchbook. And well, especially if you feel more comfortable with digital art. But if you feel more comfortable with traditional, that's a whole nother story of becoming comfortable in a digital medium. But I know that for doing traditional stuff, things that you might not, you might think, oh, I can't learn that much from traditional. But even things like contrast, I felt like I learned primarily through doing my traditional drawings. And I don't know if I would have learned it as quickly doing just pure digital. So it's very interesting to kind of, when you recognize like what you picked up from one and being able to apply it to the other. So I guess what was the second part? How do I fix? Because it's kind of disheartening. Just practice. Just get back into it, and it might just take a little while, because you are so comfortable with working digitally that you might even notice your left hand like doing the Command Z. That happens to me all the time, where I'm doing something or I'm drawing something traditionally, and then like my left hand will be like trying to hit the keyboard shortcuts when obviously they're not there. So it just takes some time and getting used to, but you'll adjust.
Kanesha asks, when you reach a point where you can create amazing art without frustration, like landscapes or character concepts, does drawing get funner or easier? Because I can't seem to draw what I imagine. I end up disliking a lot of my art.
Disliking a lot of your art. Let me read the second part. Does drawing get funner or more easy? Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think you might be stuck on an art hurdle right now. And trust me, those come along all the time. Usually happens to me like 2 or 3 times a year where I just feel like I'm stuck at my skill level and I'm frustrated because I want to get better, but it just takes some time. And it's frustrating because you're like, like I wish I just had the knowledge to do this quickly right now. But the whole point of becoming a digital artist isn't that it's not something that you gain overnight. It's something that is acquired over years, and it's something that comes with practice. So the first thing I would say is just keep practicing. And then the second thing I would say is it totally becomes more fun because as you start to kind of recognize yourself and what you enjoy drawing, then you can start becoming, I guess it coincides with as your skill level gets better, your art usually or at least tends to adhere to a particular style. Because even for a while, I still don't think I had a style. But now that I'm starting to recognize, okay, well, there are certain things that I do that I definitely recognize as being a Tim thing. And as you learn more and more about yourself as an artist, it becomes fun because then a lot of the times you can put your mind on autopilot while you're drawing and you can be like listening to music or something. And then it doesn't become technically hard, it just becomes conceptually hard. So, like, if this was a giant braid that was going around this girl's shoulder, I feel pretty comfortable in being able to draw this braid because I've drawn braids before. I've many, many braids before, and I feel comfortable in knowing the shape and the dynamics of it. Where if this was my first time drawing a braid, it would be frustrating because I'd be stuck on a technical aspect of the drawing rather than the conceptual. So being stuck on the conceptual part is so much more fun than being stuck on the technical part. So yes, that comes with time and it becomes a lot more easy and a lot more fun, especially as you start getting people that recognize your art and they get excited seeing new stuff from you. I think that's when, as an artist, it's like, it's so fulfilling and you just feel just very complete as an artist. So it comes with time. So just bear with it and just keep practicing every day, draw every day.
Cindy Cougar asks, what advice would you have for drawing the same character multiple times, from different angles and in different settings? What are the most important visual markers?
This is something that I think I struggle with because like I said earlier, I feel like I'm a precision artist. And sometimes doing characters multiple times, like from different angles, you have to be faster, you have to be quicker. And that is a challenge for me. So I guess my best advice for you is to do it more often because the more you do something, the easier it becomes. It's kind of like a muscle memory. And even from Psychgura's latest article post on 5 tips to help you draw more, which you can read for free on the site, it talks about how through repetition things become easier, and it's very true. It's just that that time staking drawl of like, ugh, I have to draw something 50 times to feel comfortable with it. But if you can get through those 50 times, trust me, it becomes so much more easy to draw anything. So if you have trouble drawing hands, draw it 50 times from like 50 different angles, and I promise you'll be better at drawing hands at the end of it, regardless of how much you think you learned, because in the back of your mind, you're gaining a sense of visual knowledge that you might not even be aware of. So like how the thumb is angled or like how many wrinkles are on the different creases. There's things that while you're drawing it, you pick up because you have to draw it so many times that you'll gain that knowledge and hopefully it'll stick with you. So the whole goal of like doing that kind of stuff is that you've drawn it so many times that it just becomes second nature. It's very muscle memory at that point.
Class 16 asks, when sketching, is it good to try to use colors?
Is it good to use colors? Yeah, I don't see why not. I definitely feel I appreciate the value of grayscale and how to work with that. But yeah, there's definitely huge benefits in working with color. I would say it's a little harder because then you have to work with a spectrum of the whole spectrum of using color as a visual representation for what you're drawing as well. But I would definitely never discourage that.
Oh, here's a really good question from Savage Shoe. Do you think that traditional work will eventually get phased out by digital, such as today in video game studios, 99% of concept art is done within Photoshop? Can the same begin to happen within all areas where traditional and digital conflict?
Yeah, I think especially now, I think it's very much more relevant and like uh, noticeable, I guess, is that almost all concept art these days is digital. I don't see it as a bad thing though, because I see is that we're just adapting to the times. I don't think it'll forever phase out traditional. I do see traditional as being a slower mechanism to create art. It can be faster, but most times it's slower. And that's why everything is usually done digitally these days. But uh, you'll see every now and then pencil or even like oil painting or watercolor work that's being incorporated into concept art books. And it's beautiful. And I think it's so funny how now that is a standout where it used to be like that was a standard. The entire concept art book would be like traditional, but now it's like the entire digital art book, or yeah, the entire concept art book is digital. There'll be a few things of sketches, and usually those are what people adhere to the most. So I don't think it'll ever get phased out completely, but I will say if you want to become a concept artist, I would say the safe route is to get good digitally and then do traditional on the side, because I still believe that you can pick up and become a better artist if you're doing both at the same time rather than just choosing one.
I was going to say there's always an appreciation for the traditional side of things, you know?
Oh yeah,
Like especially when you don't see it. Like I remember going to Spectrum and seeing Alan Williams and just being like, "You did this in pencil? This is amazing."
right.
You know, or even clay sculptures versus ZBrush and stuff, you know.
Oh yeah, we just had that discussion too, where there's something about that aesthetic and that knowledge of like someone hand sculpted this versus someone just modeled it. So like all the imperfections are kind of gone. But sometimes people like to see the imperfections because it adds like a human touch to it. I think that's why people like pencil sketches too, because it's, oh, wait, there's a word that describes this. Because for people that don't understand digital art, like example, almost my entire family, showing them a digital print of an illustration I did versus a pencil sketch, it's so much easier for them to understand and recognize how much work went into the traditional sketch versus the painted illustration in Photoshop. And I think there's an appreciation from people that don't understand art more on the traditional side versus the digital side.
Tall, dark, and geeky asks, I would like to look into doing art commissions, but I'm not totally sure on how to approach that. Do you have any recommendations or tips for selling art?
That's awesome. We just commissioned Psychra to do another article kind of about this, but it's one of the main points, or a few of the main points, were underselling yourself as an artist, getting burnt out, and there was another one that was really good. Let me find it. Because there are a lot of difficulties and challenges that come with that. And the common pitfalls. Oh, overpromising. That was the last one. Is where it's like, oh yeah, I can do 10 commissions in the next 2 months, and then a month and a half goes by, and then you only have like 4 or 5 done, and you have another 5, and you have like a week and a half to get it done, and it can be overwhelming. But okay, so how to approach doing commissions in the first place? One, try to get yourself recognized and get your art out there. And any tips, or do you have any recommendations or tips for selling art? Yes. Um, it's tough because I feel very much obligated to say I wouldn't sell fan art online. I just feel like that's such an iffy gray area that I would just avoid. Now you can, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but it's just something that I wouldn't recommend as much. But if you're looking to do selling art at like conventions, I think that's where you can have more fun with it because it's a little more loose. But maybe you're someone that does only original art. And I'm telling you right now, it might be a little harder at the start, but in the long run, it will pay off. And uh, I would start selling a little lower, not too low, but low enough where it seems reasonable for an artist that maybe doesn't have their name as recognized yet. And then over the years, as you do more art and you become more established as an artist, then you can slowly raise the prices up as your skill level will go up as well. So I think you have to be very aware of like your prices versus other prices out there and really look at your skill level and evaluate, okay, this person has it at this and like have like a list of like 10 to 20 artists that you found their prices that are commission prices online, and then really try to evaluate, where do I fall in this spectrum of artists, and do I feel like my art is worth this much? And I would guess that would be my biggest advice for starting out.
Dog Snacks asks, is it better to do less finished drawings or more sketches for improving?
Both. I don't think there needs to be a like one or the other. I think both can be beneficial. Um, I think it also comes down to, what do you enjoy more? Like I much enjoy doing something like this, but this is very slow, and I can probably only produce like one every now and then. Where if I was doing something quick or gestural, I could probably pop out a few more. Now, mind you, I'm still pretty slow when it comes to gesture sketching, but it kind of depends on what you want to do. But I would definitely recommend doing both.
Rob Shea asks, where do you get all these ideas? Do you get more ideas like the more you draw and better you are at drawing?
Yeah, I think it kind of comes like I think I talked about this last week, where I feel like inspiration comes sporadically and you can't always plan it. Like whenever you have an idea and you want to draw it, yeah, I think I did talk about this last week, but you want to draw it sooner than later, because another new idea or inspiration will come your way, and then that piece will get put on the back burner and probably never get fully cooked. So you want to work on what you're inspired to do at that moment, because chances are you'll work faster, you'll be more into it, and you'll be happier when it's complete. But if you always push things to the back, then you might never get something done. And that's where that becomes a problem, because then you're stuck as one of the artists that have a bunch of in progress works, but nothing finished. And that's one of the worst things that you could have as an artist, especially as a younger artist. And my friend Gabe always says, finished is better than perfect. And I totally believe that when you're starting out, or even when you're more down the line, I would say, even like if you already got your job and you're doing personal art on the side, you still want to try to work on being faster and trying to just get it done so you can move on to the next.
Oh, this is a question that infuriates me.
Infuriates you? Let's hear it.
Can anyone learn to draw, or if you don't have that big talent, you should give up? Is a little bit talent enough? How important is it, since it is a skill that you can learn and improve upon?
Well, I'm glad that they at the end said it's a skill that you can learn and improve, because this is something that bothered me a lot. Even being called naturally talented always bothered me, because it almost disregards all the hard work that goes into becoming an artist. And I do believe there's something about talent where it might be that's what you are adhered to, or that's what interests you. So maybe like that, but I still don't consider that talent. When I hear talent, I immediately, like, to me, it just disregards hard work. So what I like to say is that at a young age, I was very impressionable, and drawing, it stuck with me. Now, obviously, I wasn't that good, but I started when I was like 5 or whatever, and ever since then, I've always drawn in the back of my my notes in class, whatever it might be. I always was drawing. So it's something, now that I'm 25, I have a 20-year span of artistry, I guess if you want to say, that I've worked up my skill level. So someone that starts when they're 21, 22, yeah, they're battling someone that has been doing this for 20 years. Even if they weren't that great starting out, it doesn't matter. They were interested in it, and they got into that mind zone of, I'm going to be drawing, and that's what I'm interested in. That's what I love doing. Or someone that's 21, they probably aren't that passionate about if they never drew beforehand, because if they were really into, or they thought they had an interest in it, they probably would have done it already. So I guess that's kind of a hard question for me, because I don't think there's like kids that are born with this huge talent and they're like destined to do great art. I think there's kids that are interested in art at a young age and they adapt to drawing. And the other example was someone told me about during medieval times, drawing was no different than like being a baker. And it was, what they call it? Shoot, not a craft, but it was something where it could be taught. And as long as you had the kid at a young age and you teach them the skills, like they will adapt to it. Now, if they're not like all into it, like if they had more of an interest in sports and you're forcing art down their throat, chances are, yeah, they probably still won't become a great artist because they're not interested in it. So I think it's a combination of being interested in it and being passionate about it. So that's my whole take on talent. And I never believe that someone was just born naturally talented. I just think someone was born naturally inclined.
Maybe it's Maybelline.
Maybe it is Maybelline.
I believe the word you're looking for is apprenticeship.
Maybe. But what's that called? Like a leatherworking is a...
It's a craft.
Is it a craft? Maybe it is craft.
Yeah.
This is the weirdest girl I've drawn in a while. I'm going to take it down. Oh, and never be afraid to erase on your paper. This is another thing that bothers me when I see artists that are like, well, it's good enough. I can't stand that. Where like this top part bothered me, so I'm going to change it. Because if I don't think it adds value, or if it actually becomes more distracting, then I want to change it because I want to make the best piece possible. But if I'm leaving things in there that I know are hurting the piece, then I feel like as an artist, I'm cheating myself because then I'm not giving the best work that I possibly can. I'm just being lazy at that point.
Marco asks, how good can graphic tablet follow up when it comes to traditional drawing?
How good can graphic tablet follow up? So like doing something over traditional drawing?
I don't know.
I would say good. I would say there's a lot of artists that still do that. I would say most comic book artists still draw traditionally. Well, I shouldn't say most because I'm not as familiar, but I would say a good chunk of them still do other stuff on like a paper and then do it with like blue lines and then ink it or whatever and then scan it in the computer and have a colorist go to it. So I still think that it's relevant to start traditionally for... Actually, that's a good example of traditional art still is relevant in today's artistry.
And I was also going to say it's really convenient. Like paper and pencil is probably the most convenient thing you can have because it's everywhere.
Yeah.
You have the ability to shell out like $2,000 for a companion. You're not going to have that, and even then that can die on you. You know what I mean? Like it loses its power, whereas a pencil and paper will never go away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love drawing pencil. I actually wanted to make a quick video to show where all the sketchbooks are in my house because I have one in my backpack, one in my computer bag, 2 by my bedstand, 2 by my desk by me, and then 1 in front of the TV. And it's one of those things where it's like it's always around you, and you never have to worry what you just said of the power thing that is like out of your control. What?
Question from my sister. Those pictures of yourself in your boxes you talked about last week, where can I find those? Winky face.
That's from your sister? On my laptop? Which will not be sent out. I might, as a joke, I might send one out as like my I'm not embarrassed by these and you shouldn't be either kind of a encouragement, hopefully. Are rather embarrassing. This is like I'm in my like bulldog boxers and just sitting awkwardly.
Just flexing. Just pow.
No, I never flex. My muscles speak for themselves, which is non-existent. All right, so right now I just switched to the 0.5 pencil. So right now this is, and I know that let's see, we got like 20 minutes. So maybe I'll focus on like this horn area right here, because I'm not sure exactly where I'm going with it, but that's kind of the beauty of doing stuff like this, where it's growing, the piece is growing, and I'm figuring out what I like, what I don't like, and I'm working with it rather than working against it. So like right now, this bothers me that the horns kind of come into the forehead, but I don't really have a shape or like an idea of how that works yet. But I know in my head, I'll think of something, whether it be like maybe I'll do a crest of some kind on her forehead that kind of like hides a lot of the interlapping here. But anyways, the point I was trying to make was right now I'm outlining different areas where I'm just slightly pushing down, creating more of a distinction of the different forms and the shapes. And it's like a subtle outline. And then maybe I'll do some shading, but really I'll probably keep it more minimal at this point. Because once you get into shading, I feel like you're committed to that. Like you feel really confident that this is what you want the end result, or the end concept to look like. So I try to avoid shading until I kind of have the entire concept laid out in front of me and I feel very confident with it. All right, sorry, we can take another question if we got one.
What is the weirdest request you've ever gotten from a client? Like, has anyone asked you to draw pornographic things? Hope this question is responsible for a hilarious story.
I wish I had more of a story behind it, but someone asked me to do furry porn before, and I just declined them. And they were good. They were like nice about it. And they're like, "Okay, thank you. Anyways, blah blah blah." I guess that's where you kind of have to decide what kind of an artist are you. Where if you're willing to do that, that's great. Like that's all for you. But if you choose not to, you have to ask yourself now, why did I choose not to? And if you really feel like there's a reasoning behind it, then stick with it and be very grounded on this is the stance I'm taking on this particular art, and I am going to stick with it, and that will be appreciated. It's kind of like I don't really ever want to draw big breasts or guys that are like over musculature, and I think I have to stick since I made that commitment to myself. I feel like if I did start doing that kind of art, then it would be letting myself down, and I think that's the worst thing you could do as an artist, because in the end, you should be creating art for yourself, and then other people will hopefully gravitate toward it and appreciate it. Where if you start doing art for solely other people, I think that's when you start to lose the personal touch on your art.
Selena asks, what does it take to become a concept artist?
What does it take? $5. How
Your
about
first born child.
yeah, right. That was a hard one to give up. So what does it take to become a concept artist? I think a lot of time, a lot of dedication, a lot of understanding that you're going to have to sacrifice a lot of time to do this. And there's really no excuse. Like whenever I know I talk about this every stream, but I really want to make it known to you guys. When I hear people say that they don't have time, it usually means that they don't manage their time well. And with concept art or becoming a digital artist, you have to sacrifice a lot of your time to this. This is something that isn't like you can only spend like 15 minutes a day on. I mean, you have to spend hours and hours of dedicated practice and learning and figuring things out. And not everyone, I think, can handle it. I think sometimes it looks easy because we enjoy it, but this is still a technique that we're learning. It's like practicing the piano. You can't just expect to jump on and know everything. Like it takes a lot of dedication and practice, and it's something that you have to learn through a great amount of time. So above everything else, I think it takes a lot of your time and dedication. And if you really feel like maybe this isn't for you, like you're not willing to, sacrifice Saturdays on a weekend where you could go out with friends, but rather you're stuck at your house drawing for the entire night, there's going to be times like that. And if you're not willing to do that, I don't think this is the right career path for you. Sorry about the shaking. Now that I'm starting to do some slight shading, it might shake a little bit.
Abra Ali says, I've had a lot of trouble designing cloths for my characters. Did you have trouble with this when you designed your own characters? If so, how do you get past it?
Drawing cloths or clothes?
Clothes.
Yeah, I think if you feel like it's you're having trouble with it, it's probably because it's not defined enough. And that's something that I always struggle with my own characters, where sometimes I think my characters read too bland and I have to make them stand out somehow without being like crazy, being weird for the sake of being weird. And I guess if so, how did you get past it? I think it's when you start to really decide, okay, who is this character? And you start diving into them as an actual person. And I think when you start doing that, then your character, it makes much more sense of like what they would wear. Why are they wearing that? What kind of weapon would they have? What environment do they live in? And that has to reflect in the clothing, things like that. And I think the more that you ask yourself questions like that, the more that the design of the character will just kind of come naturally. It won't be like this big frustration process of trying to make it work, because it will just naturally work and it'll feel good as you're doing it. So I guess my biggest advice for you at this point is start to get to know your character better. Take them out for a dinner date, get to know them, sit them down, do a Q&A session. I know this might sound kind of ridiculous, but my writer challenged me to what was called character asks, where he would list out like 10 questions and I had to answer them as if I was each of my characters. So if you guys know who Red is, that's one of my characters, and I had to get into the mindset of Red and figure out how would she answer this. And if I wasn't able to explain it like right away, then I didn't know my character well enough, and that's a problem. And I think that's where great character design comes in, is when you fully flesh out and you fully feel like this character is a living person. You just haven't met them in real life, but you know everything about them. And it becomes so much easier as a character designer to draw their clothing once you feel like you really know who they are as a person.
Oh, you're getting called out from I am not. It says, didn't you just say finished is better than perfect? And now you said that you can't stand people who say good enough. What's the difference?
Okay. All right. I'm glad he actually called me out on that, because there is a difference. People that say good enough, they're too lazy to fix their mistakes. The difference is I'm still planning to finish it. I'm just going to change it and alter it so that I don't just settle on the current look of it. So finished is better than perfect is kind of a blanket statement for actually finishing your pieces. But then people that say good enough, it's like they're moving on without giving the time to develop the piece fully. So I guess it's the mindset that I can't stand, where they're not growing as an artist. They're just holding themselves back because they're lazy. And I think that's the difference between those.
All right, now I'm going to go to the bottom of the list, see if I missed any questions.
In the abyss of the ocean.
Because there was. I was just trying to take the top ones because we were getting tons of them. I can't read that question. That's in Russian.
That's oh. I thought you said something else.
Scrolling. Can you do a drawing of bacon?
Of what?
Bacon?
I can't hear you.
Testing. Hello?
I heard B. Bay.
For some reason, my microphone. Whoa.
It's bad, Joe.
There.
There we go. Of what?
For some reason, my microphone decides to auto level itself to like 20%.
Oh, there it goes again. But what do they want me to draw?
They want you to draw bacon.
Oh, bacon. Good joke. If you guys don't understand, that's like my least favorite food, and I don't eat pig, so it's kind of a double standard there, or a double negative. I mean, not double standard.
Vintage pull-up is hello. Is it working?
As long as I can understand you, I guess.
All right. What first inspired you to begin drawing? Where did you find inspiration currently?
Actually, hold on. Hold on. Oh, I thought it was over there. Oh, shoot. I had a picture of my sister teaching me how to draw when I was really young. Where did I put that? But pretty much, I would say it was my sister. She kind of sat me down and opened coloring books and would just color with me for a while. And I don't know, something must have triggered my mind that like that was so enjoyable and relaxing, and like I really enjoyed doing that I just continued to do it even after she wasn't there to help me. It was kind of like then I took drawing on as my own. Where do I find inspiration currently? Usually in the randomest places. I'm one of those weirdos that still adheres to pop culture, so I would say pop culture still inspires me. Things on Pinterest, obviously my favorite artists, I follow them, and it's really easy to get inspired by them. Uh, and then in random places, kind of like the tutorial I did, which you can watch about finding inspiration, where I found a plant at a grocery store, and it was like the most inspiring thing to me because it was just like this oddly, weirdly shaped plant, and I just saw like creature instantly, and I wanted to draw it. So sometimes it's like unplanned how to find your inspiration, but uh, I would say it's something that you shouldn't force, and you should just let it come naturally. And as you get inspired, uh, do your best to like put it down on paper or on a digital canvas as soon as you can.
Mike P asks, I'm looking for an alternative to art school. What's some good recommendations? Have you heard of Online Art Academy? And is that any good?
Yes, I've actually never taken a class from there though. But if you're talking about the one that just had their Kickstarter, I actually signed up, and I'm hoping to take the color and light one from Dice Tuzami, or I shouldn't even try to butcher that last name, but he's the one that worked on the Dam Keeper, and I love the look of it. So I will take their class, and I'll let you know how that goes. And I'm actually really looking forward to it. And yes, I totally think that anything you want to learn, you can find online nowadays, even through YouTube. Like it's kind of crazy how, like for me, I felt like DeviantArt was my big. If I needed to learn how to draw something, I would go to DeviantArt and look at if there were any like step-by-step tutorials, and that's kind of where I got a lot of my information. But then even there weren't as many in like 2008, 2009, but there's still a good number of them where I felt confident that I could just go to YouTube really quick and search in like female character drawing process or something, and I would be able to find the process. And I'm a visual learner, so it's really easy for me to just look at how someone does something and just recapture it. So I didn't really need an audio or voiceover. But nowadays, you can find like an audio voiceover on almost any subject matter. So it's awesome. I can't wait to see what the next generation of artists produces, because there's artists being introduced to Photoshop at like 13 and 12. And I felt like I was inhibited because I wasn't even introduced to Photoshop till I was 19. So I wish I could have got my hands on it before high school even. And that would have been just like awesome if I could have started teaching myself at a younger age. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what happens in the next like 10 years.
Cat Cartel asks, since the new summer workshop is now closed, can someone still learn the same lessons / skills if they're a regular citizen member?
They will learn different ones because with 5.0 coming out soon, there's a whole structured guide path, I should say, that you can take. It's structured a little differently than the mentorship workshop because I'm literally working with artists one-on-one, and I'm trying to understand, okay, what skill level are you currently at? And let's take you to the next couple of skill levels in the next 5 weeks. So I would say it's a different approach than what citizen members are getting, where citizen members is more of like a structured path, and then you can always go and refer to them for like, let's say you wanted color. You have a really rough time doing color. There'd be tutorials on the site that you could watch, and that would go very much in depth in specifically just color and give you a better understanding in that. Making this headdress bigger.
Jason Kunz asks, Tim, do you sometimes draw things in big projects, like in themes? A problem I've noticed I'm having with is I get excited to do new awesome projects halfway in another one, so what happens if I end up not getting any of my projects done?
That's definitely a problem. What I mean, it's kind of good because it sounds like you're being inspired too much. We're having like a hard time just sticking with one. But I would say it comes down to like what um, are you most passionate about? Like, is there a story that you're like, yeah, this is gonna be my story? And I think you'll start to notice like every artist has like a personal story or even a few of them that they want to work on and develop, but there's usually one standout. So I would try to figure out what that standout story is for you and then really make it a priority. I think that's something I've struggled with for like my entire life of making swordplay, which is my personal story, like a priority. And right now it's con season, so it's a little rough. But for a good week and a half, it was like every day for an hour at midnight, I would just draw specifically for my story. And I think you need to do that, and you need to stick with it. You need to like decide, yes, this is something I'm going to uh, sign up for it mentally, being like, okay, I got to dedicate myself to this, and I'm going to work on this because this is the decision I made. And it sometimes can be rough because you want to move on, but sometimes what if you can kind of like combine the two ideas? Why can't you incorporate some of the new inspirations you have into the story that's already been established? Sometimes it doesn't work, but most of the time it probably would. And I think that's kind of the best way to go about doing it. Okay, so for the last 10 minutes of the stream, I'm going to work with this itty bitty 0.3. Where's my camera? Somewhere around here. There we go. This 0.3. It's not going to, oh, kind of focused. It's very, very tiny. It's my 0.3 mechanical pencil. It's my notorious yellow pencil. And I'm going to do some of the finer detailing here before the stream cuts out. So if you guys have any final questions, feel free to ask now. And this is going to be super weird drawing around this camera, but I'm going to do my best. And my voice is really loud because my mouth is like almost touching the microphone. So what's the next question, Joe?
I'm looking.
Okay.
Sorry. It seems like we have a question that's just being spammed, so I had to like scroll through all of that. Oh, here's a good question. Do you think that there comes a point when it's too late in life to start learning to draw?
I think you'll disagree with me on this one, Joe. We talk about this a lot, where I do think there has to come a point where you have to decide, like, is this the right path for me? Do I have enough time to dedicate to this craft to really hone in on my skills and become like a great digital artist? Now, I really do believe that art is like not nostalgic. Tim, what word are you looking for? Therapeutic. And I definitely recommend anyone that wants to draw, obviously they should draw. But I think if you want to take yourself into like a career aspect, I think it can be really rough starting late. So I don't want to ever discourage someone, but I think realistically, for like a long-term investment, you really have to be invested in doing digital art. So I would say do it if you really feel like, yes, I'm going to 100% give everything I got to this and I'm going to, dedicate myself, then yes, go for it. But if you're like, I'm thinking I might get into it, I kind of have an interest for it, but I don't know, we'll see. And you have like if you have a family and you need to provide for them, I think it's a really tough call to make for anyone. And that's why I don't think it can be like a blanket statement. It has to be a per person situation. Really look at the circumstances and feel it out if it's right for that artist.
Oh. Benedict about the workshop says, I entered the workshop, but I do not have Photoshop. Is there a problem? Or is it fine if I use Paint Tool Psi instead of
Benedict?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. There was more of the question.
Yeah. Will there also be traditional drawing assignments, or are they possible if wished for?
They're all digitally inclined. Like I would prefer them digital, but I would see no problem in doing them traditional. And no, there's no problem in you using Paint Tool SI. If anything, I think that's awesome because it kind of showcases that it doesn't matter what software you use, like the skills that you're going to learn can be universal for any software. It's more or less, I'm trying to train the artist. I'm not training to learn how to use the software. Because the software is essentially just the tools that the artist uses. So I'm trying to help the artist. I'm not trying to help learn the software.
Lily asks, I found that sometimes when using reference for characters, like for a pose, it can still come off as looking wrong. Like even a pose that is possible in real life can look weird at the wrong angle. Is this something to do with silhouette?
No, that's totally true. I notice that all the time where I'm like, well, this is what the picture looks like, but it looks so bizarre. And this is one of those times where I'd actually recommend cheating it a bit, where sometimes you'll notice in your pieces, it might not be 100% accurate, but it looks better. And I wouldn't go overboard on this. You'll see it every now and then. Like I think League of Legends does it the best, where sometimes their proportions and anatomy are so, I don't want to say far-fetched, I'll just say stylized, that it doesn't really make sense, but it looks amazing and it adds to the overall composition of the piece, where I definitely know what you're talking about, although about like the pose looking wrong. Usually it does with like, I'm assuming you're talking about anatomy and proportions, where you do have to be very careful on not over stylizing it, because then it does become a problem where it looks so wrong that it doesn't matter how cool it looks because it's so distracting at that point. So I would say, yeah, focus on the proportions and anatomy first, but then if there's areas where it really does look off, then I would say adjust it accordingly to help fit the angle that you're currently viewing the body and the pose of. Oops, sorry. I don't like that lip.
Basta Blast says, do you have any tips on making progress in your art when you have a hectic routine that changes every day/week? For example, I'll work with rotating shifts.
That's rough. I think that every artist, and I think the more that you get to know yourself, they have like a certain time period or a time frame when they work the best. And sometimes they're inconvenient. Like I really do believe my time frame is like 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. That's when I feel like I produce my best work. And I know that it might get a little harder as I get older to keep up with that, but if you kind of find that like your best time is like, let's say it's 3 to 6 for you, and in your work schedule, if you notice when you get like breaks of that's when you have off, then I would really focus on really taking advantage of that time frame, that time period, and do as much art as you can. And then if it's like early in the morning or super late, I still think you should draw, but don't force yourself to draw for like extended periods of time if you're really not feeling it. But yeah, that is kind of a hard adjustment to make. But I do believe that you can do it. A lot of doing art is like a mindset. And if you can get in the right mindset, you can draw at any time, regardless of if it's like your sweet spot time or not.
Fimox asks, could you briefly explain how to tackle a more suggestive style of sketching? See many people like James Gurney not sketching entire glasses, but instead rather the part where it would show contrast. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I love that. I think that's awesome. But yeah, that's definitely a particular style. Like, I would say you kind of figure out what you like to do. Like, for instance, I love reverse contrast. So like on this horn, see how it's really dark right here? And then it's against this really white area. So when I shade this, I'll probably shade the underside, but then I'll leave this white area more white because I like the look of that and the aesthetic of that. And there's little things that you'll learn about yourself that you kind of just do naturally as you sketch. And I think something like James Gurney, where he only draws a part of the the frame. I think that's awesome because then it still gives the impression of the frame, like the viewer is still able to understand what the subject matter is, but it was only through part of it. So it's almost borderline impressionistic, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just think it's a different style. Let's see, we got 2 minutes left. Okay, so last two questions.
How about you look for the questions, because there's tons of them that I could go through.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
We got good questions today then?
yeah, they're all really good. I just, if you want to do your last couple ones.
All right, let's see here. I'm a 16-year-old in high school. Do you think it's too late? No, I was 19 when I first started. So unless if I thought I was too late to the party, then I should definitely just walk out as well. But no, I don't think you're too late. What inspired me to draw this? Maleficent, if you can't tell. The Horned. That's like my favorite villain of all time. There aren't really any traditional pencil sketches yet, but there will be. I do plan on doing that. Oh, this is a good one. The opinion on the idea that beautiful faces come in specific ratios. Yes, there are things that kind of back that up, and that symmetrical faces tend to be more visually appealing. But maybe you can play on that idea and like do some that are slightly asymmetrical and play on the whole idea of like what is beauty, that whole route that you can take. What are some books or other ways to improve your character design? There's a tutorial that I did 2 years ago that I actually still stand really strong behind on it. I think it's starting character or something. It's characters where to start, but I really give my in-depth explanation on what I think it takes to really get to know your characters and understand what makes a good character design. Yes, the Eat Sheep guy does look like Ziggs. That was my inspiration. How can I draw an image with both hands? You tell me. If you figure that out, I would like to know so I can be more efficient with my time and just draw at the same time. What's a good pen or pencil for sketching? I think any pencil is good. You just got to figure out what's right for you. Like maybe you don't like the mechanical ones. Maybe you like the more traditional standard pencils, or maybe you're more of like a micron pen kind of person. Do you have a certain type of lighting that you use? Usually I'll do more of like pillow shaded unless I'm like really trying to emphasize like lights coming from a certain direction. But when you're doing stuff like this that is more of like a stylized representation of the character, yeah, I usually go for a very basic no lighting. It's almost like fantastically lit, and I do pillow shaded and then just shadow out to the edges. Piano is fun. Yes, it is. Do I work out, do parkour, skate, or something like that? I do go to the gym every now and then. I love playing sports. Tennis is, I was the captain of my team in high school, so that's definitely something I miss in volleyball. Okay, man, there are a lot of good questions. Holy jeez. Someone says they started by learning muscles of the male and female body. Do you think there's a better way to start drawing or an easier way, one to get better with? I think do what you're passionate about. So if you're like drawing characters, yeah, draw a bunch of different poses, anatomy, get familiar with proportions, and just do your research on it, and it'll kind of just grow on itself. So the more knowledge that you have on your brain, it'll just manifest and it'll like grow more the more you feed it. So the more information that you feed that knowledge, it'll just get bigger. Someone says, are you ignoring my question because it's mentioning another site? No, I don't know what question you had, but I totally think you should check out other digital art sites. I think limiting yourself to only one site, even if it's my full-time job, I think that hurts you as an artist. I think you should look at as many different digital art websites as you can. I think Matt Core has a really great one with Control Paint. I think even YouTube, Psychra has a lot of good ones. cintiq, I usually watch a bunch of his. So these are pretty funny. Do I ever use watercolors? No, just because I'm such an obsessive compulsive person that I think that would drive me crazy. I used to in high school, but I don't anymore. Oh my gosh. I keep thinking I'm gonna like end the scroll, Will.
Yeah, no.
I mean, thank you guys for giving me a lot of these, or even just asking in general, these great questions. And these seem to be really constructive. Someone's asking, how do you draw braids? Is there a way you construct them, or is that your knowledge on them? There is. I actually did a full reference sheet on how to draw braids. So you can find that on DeviantArt. It's free. And it kind of goes through the whole idea of like how to draw braids. There's like 3 different ways to draw braids. Usually I do like a zigzag, depending on where I want the braid to be. And then I'll draw them. No, mind you, this is very quick. That's generally how I draw my braids. Now, also though, I try to keep in mind that the hair would be a little thicker. So the zigzag wouldn't be like a perfect zigzag. It would be slightly fuller. And then I would just work on that from there. Because you can't just lay down a foundation and be like, yep, I'm done. You have to go back and really make sure it looks like a braid. So that would be my technique on drawing braids. Am I excited about E3? You bet. Hopefully there'll be some Kingdom Hearts news. I'm still kind of a Kingdom Hearts dork. Where am I from? I'm currently located in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Oh my gosh. There are a lot of good questions. I'm so sorry that we're cutting the stream shorter because I feel like I should have just took like 10 minutes of answering these. Was I a fan of Lizzie Grant? Yes, I was. I'm glad that you know who that is. Yes, I totally think so. Someone's asking if you are interested in fashion design by chance. How can we pretty much use that? I think the best concept artists for characters are also really in tune with fashion, and they have a strong fashion sense. And they're asking, how can you be better in the fashion skills? Just watch like fashion shows. Type in like obscure fashion illustration or photo shoots. I think fashion designs can sometimes be the strongest, or the compositions, especially in like high fashion. There's a lot of people working on a single illustration of like the color, like not only the color, the set design, what they're wearing, what the actual models are wearing, their position, like everything. There's so much thought that goes into it that I think sometimes it gets overlooked as, oh, it's fashion, so it's girly, or it's not as important. But I really do think that it's such an important thing to be in tune with it, to be a character artist. Okay. There are a lot of good questions. Please come back next week. I think there are a lot that I'm skipping over, but I need to end the stream. We're a little over. And I just want to thank you guys for coming to the stream. Okay, last question. Oops. I accidentally turned off my... Okay. So last question was, what is the story behind what is the story? The question moved on me. Behind the tire swing picture. That's Lana Del Rey. So that's my muse. That's why I keep her above my piano. All right. So that's the end of this live stream. Thank you guys for coming out. And I think I will do more traditional ones in the future. These are kind of fun for me, but I'll get a better. So if you guys can see that, this is my... like how I hooked that up. That's my camera on the microphone there. So that's why I was shaking a bit. So I'll probably get more of a sturdy position for the camera to be held on that's not on my desk, because when I move my desk, it shakes the camera. And I think that's most of the news. Oh, me and Joe will both be at Anime Central in Rosemont, Illinois this weekend, so stop by. I'll be not only promoting CG Cookie, I'll be selling my sketchbooks. And actually, that's what I was working on last night. I'm trying to make a little binder of all my little sketches to sell. And I think that's most of the news we have. Oh, the contest is still going on, the Rose Princess. So if you still want to enter that, you can. And I think that's all. Joe, do you have anything off the top of your head?
Not that I can think of.
And then actually, probably we will have a new tutorial from John Thacker coming out next week. So that one's on gestural drawing and capturing like the S pose of a character and the difference between a boring pose and a more dynamic pose. And I think that's everything we got. So then, yeah, last look. This is what we drew today. Maybe in the future I'll do one where I start the sketch and I'll go more into like the final detailing process, because I think there's a lot that goes into the detailing process where sometimes we're so focused on the foundation of the sketch that we don't focus enough on the finishing polish, but maybe I'll do that. All right, so anyways, I'm done. Thank you guys for coming, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.